Happy New Year, my fellow fans of the written word, whenever you are. May 2020 be much better and successful than 2019 ever was. Today I will be reviewing the 16th Watch by Myke, and it's a book that comes out in March 2020. Before I start, this book was given to me for free because the book is still not out via publisher Angry Robot in exchange for an honest review. So thank you, Angry Robot, and thank you, NetGalley. Myke Cole. Myke Cole is an author that started writing Shadow Ops series a few years ago, well, more than a few years ago actually, and he is someone who has a lot of military service background. He also has some television background. He combined in this novel all of these experiences in a very peculiar way. The story goes like this. The main character is a commander of the Coast Guard in near future. Her name is Jane Oliver, and she is close to her retirement age, service-wise. And at the beginning of the novel, and this is a very minor spoiler, but it is sort of the main part of the premise, her husband dies. In the backdrop of her husband's death, the tensions between the Americans and the Chinese on the moon are escalating. There is sort of a threat of a greater conflict. Meanwhile, in the US, just like in real life, which is something I recently learned, the Coast Guard is sidelined by the Navy and other services, but our main character, Jane, she has an option to prove herself and Coast Guard by training Coast Guard members for a televised competition of the military. She's also promised a promotion and, well, a comfortable living for her and her family. What I expected. To be honest, I don't know what I expected. I expected a high-octane story in the orbit, on the moon, maybe some kind of competence porn, even though I don't like that term. But what I got not that. There was moon, and there was some action, but I got a much slower, but not slow, story about someone who had a long period of service, a long history of service and experience to back that story. I did not expect the televised reality competition. As I said, it makes sense knowing what I know about Myke Cole's background in television. He participated in a TV show in which he was catching terrorists. It was scripted, but he used his expertise to display how is that line of work done. What I liked, well, as a general realization that I had in 2019 is I discovered that I really appreciate older, more experienced characters, which is not to say that I like cynical, seen-it-all types. I enjoy those characters as well, but I prefer people who have seen and done enough to have a certain outlook on life. And I think that Jane is a wonderful addition to that canon of older, competent characters, and I enjoyed her as a character immensely. I also am a sucker, which I might be in a minority with this, for any kind of professional jargon when used well. So we have Coast Guard jargon, some general military naval jargon lingos sprinkled in, and I'm always up for that. Unrelated to this, I am just a huge fan of old-timey naval jargon in the stories, like Horatian Hornblower stuff. I live for that stuff. Now, what I didn't care for. This is a hard one. Bear in mind, I didn't dislike it, but these are the elements that did not elevate my enjoyment. They did not make it worse, but they did not make it better. I could have done without them. There is this underlying theme of underdogs. Navy versus Coast Guard. This is sort of a passive conflict that's undergoing this under this backdrop of China versus US. And of course, the Coast Guard is the underdog. But then, in addition to jargon, which I liked, we have a lot of minute detail of procedures, how should one rule be interpreted versus the other rule, and at times I thought it was a bit too much, which I appreciate that it added to the realism, because I think this is a very confidently written book. Cole really knows what he is trying to say, what he wants to say, and what he is saying on the page. And I'm sure for other people, particularly for someone who had Coast Guard or any kind of surface background, that would add to the immersion even more, but it did not add for me. I just, in general, jargon was enough. So as a final verdict, I would like to reiterate that with any type of non-civilian group in real life and in fiction, I do think that previous background might break or make your enjoyment of this type of novel, because this is a very ground level. There's a lot of mundanity of the surface. It's not glamorizing. What I like about this book, it's not glamorizing service. It's not drawing it through the dirt, but it's painting a semi-realistic picture in the near future. And if you like quieter, less bombastic near future SF, this is very much a thing. It also really stands on itself. I could see Cole writing maybe standalone novels in the same setting, but I don't necessarily need a sequel. I would read it, but there was no sequel baiting or cliffhanger at the end. It told a nice, complete story. So that would be it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you had a fun New Year's Eve celebration and that you're resting as I am with my dog, my poor dog. Where is she? Sleeping over here. Firecrackers really made her stressed.